This presentation is designed to walk you through Lawson State's informal and formal complaint process for students. The first thing you need to do is scroll down and locate current students, as you see right here. I'm going to click on current students and scroll down, and you'll notice this little plane right in this area where you see grade appeals. If you wanted to challenge a grade that you receive, remember, always talk to the instructor first, one-on-one, and try to work it out before filing a formal grade appeal. And the complaints process is code of conduct, appeal forms, student grievances. So this is the area. So we're going to click on the complaint process. And this page is really good because what it does, it outlines the entire informal complaint process for you in general, okay? If you need more information, you can always go to the handbook. The student code of conduct is also housed in the student handbook. So let's talk about the first step. Step one, if you have a complaint, it could be against another student, a faculty member, a staff member. It doesn't matter who the complaint is against. The first thing we advise you to do is talk to that individual one-on-one, privately, okay, and without a lot of emotion. And what we mean by that is that you really just want to go up to that individual and ask them if you may speak with them and talk about in general what has upset you in a very calm, professional, and even friendly manner. A lot of times we have conflicts because of perception. The perception of someone being rude, the perception of someone being angry. So what you have to do is really address it and say, you know, I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but the other day I felt that you were rude to me, you were raising your voice to me, and I really felt that it was unprofessional. So whatever it is that you're trying to say to that individual, you need to say it so that they can then respond. And typically the response you might hear was that, oh, I'm very sorry. I did not mean to come off in that manner. I apologize. That's not what I meant at all. And a lot of times you'll hear those kind of statements. I'm sorry you feel that way, but that is not. Let's get back to working together. So again, we mentioned step one because it is the most important step to take. Oftentimes, people are upset and the other individual doesn't even know they're upset, and you haven't even given the individual the opportunity to explain. So you're really just kind of reacting based on your own interpretation of events, not listening, not hearing from the other person. So a lot of times when the other person gets in the conversation, the matter is resolved. So step one is very important. If that doesn't work, or maybe you just don't feel comfortable talking to that person, you can go ahead and move to step two. Step two, you speak with the department chair or the office director. Department chairs are linked to faculty members. That means that every faculty member has a department chair. Every office has some type of office manager or office director. Okay, so let's say you're in the business office, well, the business office has a director. Or if you're in the financial aid office, the financial aid office has a director. If you're in the library has a director. Does that make sense? So we have linked here, find a supervisor, which links you actually to Lawson's directory of faculty and staff members. So for example, let's say you don't know the person's name, but you were in, let's say I'm going to go to, I'll go to automotive, and I click go. So if I scroll down, I've just pulled up the automotive information. See if it'll scroll down for me. Here we go. And you see, there it is, Director of Center Automotive Excellence, Tom Berryman. Here's the last name and the first name, the phone number. A little later, you'll see the email addresses populate on this page. We're still building the website as I'm recording this. Okay, so what we've tried to do is put in the first line administrators actually on the website. If for some reason you're still having trouble, you can always talk to your department chair. I'm going to go back to the home button right now. You can always go back and talk to your advisor, your advisor, to see if they can help you if you can't find out who the director is or who the department chair is. But the directory really should help you. So I'm going to go back to the complaint process. And so what you would do, as we were saying in step 2, is to speak with the supervisor. And oftentimes the supervisor will invite that individual in. If it's another student, that means that you're going to go to your instructor in a situation like that. That's who's, let's say you're having a conflict with someone in the class, then the person you would actually go to would be the faculty member. If it's a faculty member, you would actually go to their department chair. Does that make sense? And oftentimes they're going to bring that individual in the room, and you two will kind of mediate and work it out. Now, step 1 and step 2 describe the informal process. If these two steps, step 1 and step 2, don't work, then you move to what we call a formal complaint process. Now, oftentimes before you can go to step 3, they'll ask you, hey, have you tried step 1 and step 2? You should never just jump to filing a formal complaint against an employee or against another student or staff member if you haven't even attempted to work it out, okay? Now, when you move to step 2 and 3, your complaint moves into so it goes from informal to formal. Okay, a formal complaint means you actually file the complaint. You're putting things in writing now. You're filing it at the institution, and now we're going to actually launch and investigate your complaint. So the way that you file a formal complaint, you simply come here. You've already completed steps 1 and 3. Steps 1 and 2. So you click on that button, and it's going to take you to the public incident reporting form, which means you'll go in. They'll ask you, what are you doing? You're going to select concern, complaint, or incident. My relationship to the institution. You are a student. You go down, has the matter been addressed informally? So they're asking you as part of this process. I'm going to show you what happens if I say no. If I say no, it's going to say, because you answered no to this question, we are recommending that you go back to those persons involved. See, they're sending you back and say, instead of you filing a complaint. But let's say yes, that you follow that. And then they're just going to ask you some additional questions about it. They're going to get your contact information, your email information, and then they're going to ask you specifically about the incident. When did it happen? Where was the location? Who was involved, right? Were there any witnesses to it? And if you have any evidence of whatever the situation is, you can actually upload that evidence. But this is where you would type in all types of information. And here's where you would attach any documentation. And we also ask you, what resolution are you seeking? In other words, you have a complaint. What is it that you would like the college to do, right? What would you like the college to do to resolve the complaint? And then you actually submit the complaint. When you submit the complaint, it actually comes to the dean's desk, and then a committee is formed, and we investigate your complaint. And that's the formal complaint process. After the dean gets a chance to review the complaint right in this area, step 3, then a dean's resolution is issued. The dean's resolution, they look at the whole situation, they investigate the situation, and they issue you a letter, and that letter will then outline for you the resolution. One thing I forgot to mention is that during the investigation, when we say investigation, it's very likely that you may be called. If you're an online student, we can do this by phone, but if you're a ground student, they're going to call you up and they're going to ask you to come in and meet with them. We may also interview some other witnesses to resolve it, okay? So that's what happens. Once the dean's resolution is issued, as far as the institution is concerned, at that point, the matter is resolved unless one thing happens. That means if you disagree with the dean's resolution, it means you have a complaint, they resolved it, but you're still not happy for whatever reason. Again, that's a very rare occurrence. But after the investigation, you're not happy with the dean's resolution, you can challenge the dean's resolution and file an actual grievance. Remember, you can only file a grievance if, in fact, a dean's resolution has been issued to you in writing. So once a dean's resolution is issued, if you want to file a grievance, you would click here. That's step 4. Again, very rare to file an actual grievance at the institution. And you would still go back to the concern and complaint. We probably will change this in the system to read grievance. I'm sure we will do that, so look for that. Well, just for the sake of this presentation, we'll just say concern complaint. And then they'll ask you specific questions about your grievance. Okay? That's exactly what will take place. I'll look at one other thing here. Yeah, that is correct. One other thing I want to bring up is this. If you notice on the third one, that's what I was looking for right here, harassment and retaliation. I want to talk to you briefly about harassment and retaliation claims. One, harassment and retaliation claims are extremely serious, and they are always accelerated in terms of our investigation. The other thing about harassment and retaliation complaints, it's extremely important before you file a harassment charge against someone that you understand what harassment is and the types of harassment, and you understand what retaliation is, okay? And so harassment doesn't always have to be sexual harassment. It could simply be harassment on the campus of Lawson State, harassment in a classroom, no matter where you are on our campus. It could just be threats to you. It could be really anything. If they are repeated threats and you're feeling uncomfortable on campus, those kinds of things would fall under harassment kind of behaviors. Now, here's the thing about harassment complaints. I'm going to go back up here. Harassment and retaliation complaints are viewed as highly serious complaints. Thus, students or employees with such complaints can skip steps 1 and 2 if they feel uncomfortable addressing the matter personally and file a formal complaint at the college immediately online after viewing the terms and conditions. See below for the definitions. Okay, so what we're saying is this. Harassment and retaliation are viewed as so extreme at the institution that we feel as an institution that you don't have to go through steps 1 and 2 unless you feel comfortable going through steps 1 and 2, right? It is important, especially with step 2, to report it. So even though we understand step 1, you don't feel comfortable going to your harasser, but a lot of times it's important to tell that individual to stop, right? So that's really, even if step 1 is that simple. Please, I don't like you approaching me every day in the hallway, asking me out. I've told you repeatedly, no. That is a form of letting that person know. So that if you think about it, that is completing step 1. So it is important to let people know, no, I'm uncomfortable with this, please stop. Those kinds of things. You're not by law required to do these things, but we're saying if you feel comfortable, please do them. Also, step 2 is something you should feel relatively comfortable with. That is reporting the offense to, is it a faculty member you're reporting it to? Maybe there's someone in class who you feel harassed by. Do you feel harassed by an instructor or a staff member? Remember, they have department chairs and directors, okay? Now, hopefully you feel comfortable reporting it that way. But what we've done is said this. If you don't feel comfortable with step 1 or step 2, just report it and we'll handle it. So just report it. Just jump to step 3 if you don't feel comfortable and report it. The most important thing is to report it. But make sure before you report harassment or retaliation claims, you do what? You actually read our definition of what it is. But in any doubt, you can always, if you're not sure, and what a student asked me this recently actually, if you're not sure if it's harassment or retaliation, what should you do? I think you already know. Just file it as a regular complaint. Does that make sense? You can file it as a regular complaint if you're not sure if it falls under harassment or retaliation. Well, that's it. I hope that this tutorial has helped you to understand, number 1, that we take complaints seriously and that we address them seriously at this institution, and that you have a way to report complaints and follow both our informal process and our formal process here at Lawson State Community College. Because what's most important is that you have a safe and comfortable learning and working environment.